Well, hello everyone. We're back. Thank you so much for joining me in this channel, Fire School Ministries podcast. Yeah, in this channel. Make sure you like and share. I'd sure appreciate that. We've been talking about intimacy, and we began with this phenomenal quote from Francis Frangipane about the fact that God really wants us to live out of this union with Him, moment by moment by moment, this place of intimacy. And then we looked at Mary and Martha and from Luke 10 and talked about that place of intimacy, how Mary lived from the feet. She lived, in a place where she was listening to the word. I mean, she gave a picture of that. Let me just say that. What she was doing, she gave a picture for us on how to live. I mean, obviously she did other things. She didn't just lay at Jesus' feet for the rest of her life. But that picture in Luke 10 verse 39 of her at the feet of Jesus is a beautiful picture of how we can live in our heart, postured in such a way that we hear everything coming out of Jesus' mouth, and that we don't have to be distracted spinning circles, in the kitchen. We don't have to be distracted like Martha was. And I remember teaching this one time, and someone came up to me and they were red in the face, veins popped out, and I have the gift of discernment. They weren't happy. They were a little upset and tense. They get in my face and they say, if there wasn't any Marthas in the church, nothing would get done. That's what they said. And that's an interesting statement. That statement makes a profound implication. And here it is. That statement is basically saying that only distracted Marthas get anything done that's effective. They're the only ones that are productive. As if listening to every word coming out of Jesus' mouth makes you ineffective. See, I maintain, listen, if you live out of the place of intimacy, if you live out of a place where you hear every single word coming out of Jesus' mouth, if you live out of that place of intimacy, you and Jesus, man, you're living on the impulse of everything He is saying. You're like a Mary at the feet of Jesus. If that's you, I'm here to tell you, you're going to be far more effective in your life and in everything you do than living with distraction. Your mind full of worry and troubled about many things. I'm just telling you. So see, it's such a misconception in the church. The most effective, productive people are those who live out of the voice. Listen, what did Martha do that we would ever remember for a lifetime? I mean, right? Oh, I know in John 11, she said, hey, you're the resurrection and the life. I get that. But what did she ever do that we would remember for a lifetime? What did Mary do that we'll remember for all eternity? Yeah, she broke the flask in John 12 on Jesus' feet, man, and her and Jesus smelled identical. And so now listen to this. That was a prophetic gesture of what was to come in Jesus' death and resurrection. It was beautiful. And so where did she get that prophetic act of breaking the flask of oil on His feet? Where did she get that? She got that revelation at the feet of Jesus. She got that revelation because she was in a place of intimacy. And what did Jesus say? Wherever the gospel is preached, man, what this woman has done, well, what? It's going to be told. It's going to be told. Like what this woman has done, Jesus was saying, has gospel significance. Like it's going to be communicated with the gospel. See? Wow. And where did Mary get that? Probably out of a place of intimacy. You only get revelation when you're postured in a place of intimacy to hear what He is saying. You're probably not going to get kingdom transformational wisdom when you're spinning circles and doing things for Him rather than living from Him. Listen, that's so important that we get that. There's a vast difference of striving for Him and resting from Him. And we live from Him, we'll get things done. We will. We'll have Martha hands, but we're going to have these Mary hearts that are living on the impulse. Like we can be, listen, you can get all kinds of things done. You can be busy with your hands And you can work on assembly lines, office, cubicles. You can be in a factory. You can be in construction. You can drive a taxi cab. Doesn't matter what you do. It isn't like you're just going to sit around and do nothing. I'm just at Jesus' feet. Stop that, man. You're going to be effective and busy. But the thing is everything you do is being sourced out of this place of intimacy because you've turned your heart toward him. And as it were, you're at his feet in your heart and you're being prompted and sourced moment by moment by moment. And so you're living out of this place of intimacy. So everything else around you can be wild, but in your heart, man, you're right there. Speak, Jesus. Speak, Jesus. Come on. Come on. Jesus lived that way. He was busy. He was effective. He did things. He traveled from one city to the next. And yet he lived being sourced by the Father, moment by moment by moment, man. And you can do that. You really can do that. It's so, so important that we grasp that, man. Wow. So important. So, let me tell you this. About 10 years ago, I read this little book. I forget the title of it, but it's by Henri Nouwen. I need to find the title for you and then post it for you. But the title talked about, or the book talked about what Nouwen called the rhythms of Jesus. The rhythms of Jesus. And here's what he said. Jesus, as you look at the Gospels, he only did 3 things. Nouwen said there were 3 phases or rhythms in Jesus' life. First, solitude or intimacy, time alone with God. Second, community, time spent with his disciples, what we would say discipleship or, just community time. 3, ministry, output, flowing, all right? So again, intimacy, community, and ministry. Intimacy, community, and ministry. Those were the 3, what he called the rhythms of Jesus. And the reason why he said rhythms of the Spirit is because you can't slice it up into thirds. Like if you're like one of these managerial gurus, you want to try, okay, 1/3, and stop that. Nouwen called it rhythms of the Spirit because the Spirit would lead. Like he's going to spend time in solitude, in intimacy with the Father. Then the Spirit leads to time spent with the disciples. And then the Spirit would lead time spent in output ministry. And it's interesting, for example, like in Matthew chapter 14, do you remember there's these people, what is it, 5,000 in chapter 14? I think it's 5,000. So Jesus is going to feed all these people that are showing up. And remember, the disciples is Matthew chapter 14. Yes, it is. And it's the 5,000. And the disciples want to get rid of the crowds. Remember, they would get rid of them. And Jesus says, no, we got to take care of them. And so they minister to him, they feed him. And then after it's all said and done, Jesus, it says, dismisses the crowd, like gets rid of them and goes into a place of intimacy. It's like Jesus does in the Spirit what the disciples wanted to do in the flesh. Because it was time now, after we ministered to them, Jesus is saying, we've ministered to them, now it's time to get rid of them. But here's my point. As soon as ministry was over, Jesus went right back into that place of intimacy. And then out of intimacy, into community with the 12. And then out of that, into a time of ministry. And then soon, and as he was done with ministry, right back into intimacy. I mean, it's just incredible. And so this rhythms of the Spirit is what he talked about. Oh, that shaped my thinking. And you think about it, a lot of times we jump headlong into ministry and wreck that, and then get with community and say, man, bail me out, I'm in trouble, and then burn up all of our friends, and then finally get along with God. Help me. It's just backwards. And I think, everything should start, if I had a triangle, everything should start right here at intimacy, and then migrate to community, and then flow into ministry, see? But it's all built in this business of being intimate with him. flowing out of a place of intimacy where we hear his voice. So let me show you an example of that in Jesus' life. All right. So Mark chapter 1. Oh, we're good. We're good. I keep looking at my watch. Sorry about that. I don't have a clock up here. You like my studio? This is my studio for a number of days here as we shoot these where we're doing ministry at. Anyway, I love it. I need to get a clock up there so I don't have to look at my... Anyway, Mark chapter 1. And so Jesus, verse 21, Mark 1, verse 21, it says they came into Capernaum, and immediately on the Sabbath, he entered the synagogue and he began to teach. Now it's interesting because if you follow this chapter, Jesus was in the wilderness, intimacy, and then he called his 12, community, and then he went into ministry. So that rhythm is right here in this chapter too. So this is output. This is ministry. This is right. And so he's teaching, but he's teaching as one with authority. And let me just say, if you live out of the place of intimacy, when you open your mouth, you'll talk with authority. You really will. There'll be anointing in what you say if you live out of that place of intimacy. Oh, wow. So he's teaching. His power is like, and there's this dude in the temple with an unclean spirit that cries out. And it's like, and Jesus, and it's saying, what business do we have with you? Anyhow, Jesus says, be quiet and come out. And it does. All the people are like amazed. In fact, they're asking, what new teaching is this? A teaching with authority. Imagine that, man. A teaching with authority, teaching with an anointing. We'd never heard that. I mean, that's what happens when you live out of that place of intimacy. Like if you're a pastor or a teacher or something, listen to me, man. When you live out of intimacy, when you open your mouth, there's going to be authority and things are going to happen. People are going to get delivered. People are going to get set free when you talk, man. Why? Because you're going to speak with an anointing. When you crawl out of the chamber room where you've been intimate with him, man, watch out. I'm just telling you, there's going to be power in what you say. And that's what's going on here, man. And so anyway, Jesus cast the demon out of the dude. They're all amazed. And then it says in verse 28, news about him spread everywhere. I mean, it's like the press was on this one, and it went throughout the surrounding district of Galilee. Then that evening, verse 32, Mark 1, verse 32, that evening, after the sun had set, they began bringing to him all who were ill and those who were demon-possessed, and the whole city gathered at the door. And can you imagine that? The whole city gathered at the door. I mean, how long would have this taken? The whole city. I mean, this is throughout the region of the district of Galilee. The whole city gathered. Can you imagine that? All these people, this is incredible. And it says, they gathered at the door. He healed many who were ill and of various diseases, and he cast out demons. It's just amazing. Anyway, I don't know how long it took. I don't know how long it took. But here's what I want you to see. Ready? Verse 35. No matter how long that took, here's what I want you to see. Ministry was over, and now it's time for intimacy. Verse 35, early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went away to a secluded place and was praying there. So see, it started off in Mark 1 in the wilderness, intimacy. Then he called his disciples, community. Then he went into ministry, and that ministry lasted pretty late into the evening. But now what's Jesus doing? Going right back into the wilderness. The word secluded there actually means this place of the wilderness. He went into a place that was secluded so he could be alone with the Father, intimacy. I just love that. I love that. And then it says in verse 37, the disciples, they start looking for him. Where's Jesus? Where's Jesus? And they get up and you know why? They're looking for him. They're searching for him. And they say, everyone's looking for you. Why? Because they were ready for day 2 of ministry, man. And why not? If I'd been one of the disciples, I would have had my ministry table set up, my books, my resources. I mean, this would have been day 2. I mean, if day 1 was that good and the whole city came and gathered at the doorstep, imagine what day 2 of ministry would have been like. Oh my goodness, I would have been ready. I would have said, come on, Jesus, the mic's ready, the sound system's on, the worship team's ready. Let's go, day 2 of ministry. And here's what Jesus says. Are you ready? Listen to what he says. Verse 38, he says to them, we got to go. What? We got to go. Jesus shuts this thing down after one ministry assignment. That's it. One service. All these people get healed the night before. All these people get demons cast out of them. And Jesus says to them, you know what? We're shutting this thing down. Why would he do that? Listen to me carefully. Jesus made decisions not based on results, but on the voice. Somebody needs to hear this. Listen to me. Jesus made his decision whether ministry should continue or end in that region based on the voice, and he didn't make it on results. So many people make decisions on results, and that's such a tragedy. They make assumptions. Man, we had a great ministry event. Hundreds got born again. Let's do it again. Well, why don't you get alone with him and ask him what he wants? Get alone in that place of intimacy and say, okay, I mean, last night was a success, Jesus, but what do you want? See, we make decisions based on the voice. Life is in the voice. We don't live by bread alone. We live by every rhema, Matthew 4:4, every prompting, everything Jesus says, we live by that. And Jesus got alone into a secluded place where he could hear marching orders. And the Father spoke. See, he was in that place of intimacy. Listen, do you know there's so many people in ministry who are just burned out and frazzled? Why? Oh, I got to be careful here. Because I think a lot of times we find ourselves doing things that Jesus never commissioned us to do. Guys, there's a lot of people in ministry that are living on presumption. I think this is what he wants, but is it what he wants? Or they're living under the demands of people around them. And that's a tragic way to live. Listen, if you're in ministry, I'm sorry, Liz. You got to live out of the voice. You got to tell your peeps that you'll best serve your people if you live out of that place of intimacy and not try to be coerced into the demands that they're putting on you. Now, I pastored, man. I would tell my folks, I'm going to best serve you by being alone with him. Now, I took care of responsibilities. I get all of that. And I pastored for almost 30 years, so I get responsibility. I was not irresponsible, but my point is, you got to live out of that place of intimacy. And some of you in ministry, some of you are burned out and frazzled. You got a pea-sized heart, and you're doing all of this stuff, spinning circles in the kitchen like Martha, but you're wondering what's going on, man. You're shriveled up on the inside. You got to get alone and spend time with him. You do. That rhythm of solitude, community, and ministry back into solitude or intimacy, that place of intimacy. It's essential, guys. It's essential. Man, listen, I feel Jesus really weighing on me on this one, because I know there's people watching, and don't get upset with me. I'm not shaming you. I'm not scolding you. I'm just saying all of us have got to find that place of intimacy. We got to live out of that. We got to live like Jesus did, man. We got to live by the voice. We got to live at the feet. Man, I want that for you. I really do. So I just pray that for you. I do. I believe that Jesus wants the church to be a listening church. I believe Jesus wants us all to be people who live out of that place of intimacy. Yeah. We might talk about this again. All right. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for being on this channel. Bless you guys.